This is nearly perfect, but it does need a few extras, which I'm going to show you today. One of the best things about the M2 MacBook Air, which I mentioned in a recent video, which I'll link to in the description, is that out of the box, it's pretty much the best laptop you can buy. That means, unlike a lot of laptops, you don't need loads of stuff in your backpack just to make this thing better, but you do need some stuff. And it struck me recently that I've built this kind of ecosystem around my M2 MacBook Air, which I'd like to share with you. This is a bit of a daily carry video, to be honest, but I know you lot love this stuff, so well, let's get straight into it. All of the links to this stuff are in the description. One of the first things you definitely need with the M2 MacBook Air is a bit of protection. This is a very thin, light laptop. I used to worry about bending it when I first got it. You can't bend, well, you probably can bend it, but you'd need to really force it. However, you still need a decent case. Up until recently, I've been using a hard shell case, which does a good job, but the more I carry this thing around on its own, the more I need a bit more from the case, which led me to tomtoc and the Defender laptop case. Tomtoc are very kindly sponsoring this video, and they sent me this to try out, and I've not stopped using it since. And one of the best things about this case is that it has loads of padding. More padding than I think I've ever seen in a laptop case slash bag. And it is a bag because it has this carry handle here, which is very useful. It also has a detachable shoulder strap, which is over there somewhere. It has this corner armor, which basically flaps over your laptop and stops the zip from damaging it. The other downside of using the hard shell case is that it didn't have any pockets to put my stuff in. This has loads of pockets. So, for instance, it has these two zipped pockets on the front, which one of them is huge, so you can fit your charger in there, you can fit loads of cables. It fits an iPad mini very happily as well. That's fantastic. It has another zipped pocket here, which I've got some other stuff in, like cables, chargers, etc. There's just loads of stuff. Like, you can put a pen in there, it's got a little pen holder. There's another little flap in there that you can put stuff. It's very well thought out in terms of storage capacity. And on that note, there's also a little slip pocket in here into which you can put other stuff. I can now leave the house sometimes without my rucksack. I can just take the tomtoc Defender. It's spill resistant and it's military drop test approved, which gives you loads of peace of mind. So thanks again to tomtoc for sponsoring this video, and I really, really recommend the Defender. Next up, we have my daily carry headphones, which you might be surprised by actually. I have so many headphones in this studio, some very expensive ones, some very budget versions. The ones that I keep using day in, day out, and I've not really stopped using all year, are the Bose QC45s. I made a video about these recently, which I'll link to above, but in terms of comfort, noise cancelling, mainly the case. I mean, the size of this case. Headphone cases at the moment are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which makes this quite a rarity. It's just a lovely size, and it's that size because the headphones fold up properly. The reason they make this list is because whenever I'm writing on the M2 MacBook Air, I'm always listening to Brain FM, which is a brilliant way of kind of immersing yourself in a productivity state. And I've found these to be the best headphones to do that. So wherever I go with the M2 MacBook Air, these follow, and they're pretty much always on my head. The thing that I don't do with the Bose QC45s is take telephone calls or conference calls. Originally on this list was the AirPods Pro 2 because they are my go-to headphones for taking calls on the M2 MacBook Air. However, I've lost them. In fact, I say I've lost them. I left them at the gym a few days ago, came back to the studio, checked Find My, and somehow they'd made their way from the gym across town, a good kind of 10-15 minute journey on their own to someone's driveway. So I went to that driveway, and to cut a long story short, they're not there anymore. So I've had to turn to something else in terms of earbuds, and for that purpose I've gone for the Beats Studio Buds Plus. I reviewed these recently, I'll put a link above if you want to check that out, but they are pretty much made by Apple these days because Beats is owned by Apple. They have pretty much all of the features of the AirPods Pro 2. So they have that instant device switching. If I go from my iPhone to my MacBook Air, I can very quickly just start using them on the laptop without switching things and connecting Bluetooth and all that faff. And when it comes to telephone calls, they're great. They're not quite as good as AirPods Pro 2 for anything really in terms of noise cancelling, sound, pass-through, transparency mode. They do fall a little bit shorter compared to the AirPods Pro 2, but they are 7 70 quid cheaper. And even though I've lost or had my AirPods Pro 2 potentially taken from me, well, I'm not tempted to buy another pair because these have come along and they're fulfilling the job. They're doing the job of the AirPods Pro 2 pretty well. These are my earbuds of choice for the M2 MacBook Air. Something else that always travels with me with the M2 MacBook Air is my iPad mini, which is currently encased in this Moft Snap Folio case. I got that wrong. It's the Moft Snap Float Folio. And the reason it's called the Float Folio is because it does this. It's actually the world's first origami iPad case. And Moft are so good at doing this sort of stuff. Basically, it folds into different shapes, so you can do that kind of folding thing there, so you can use it as a second screen, which is really good for the MacBook Air. But equally, I can fold this in here and have it as a kind of drawing mode. I can prop it up like that and use it to watch YouTube videos and stuff. And I'm finding myself using the iPad mini more and more as a second display for the M2 MacBook Air. It is quite small, but that's one of the benefits. As I showed you earlier, it fits in the tomtoc Defender really easily, and because of this Snap Float Folio, let's move this out of the way. You have your iPad mini there, you have your M2 MacBook Air there, bang, suddenly you've got a dual display setup. So naturally the iPad mini gets on this list straight away, but the addition of the Moft Snap Float Folio completely completes the package. Next up we have the Harber London DOP kit bag. Now DOP kit, I think, usually refers to a toiletry bag, which is what it kind of looks like, a very nice toiletry bag. However, you don't really put your toothbrush and your toothpaste in. You could if you wanted to, but I don't. I put all of my bits and bobs into this thing. I made a video with Patrick Rambles about this DOP kit bag. I'll put a link in the description just so you can check that out. But basically, there's way too many USB-C cables in here for anyone. But more importantly, I've got things like my external SSD drives. I've got some chargers and things in here. Harber London stuff isn't cheap. You can get much more cost-effective tech bags. I'll put a link to another one in the description, which I quite like. But if you've got a bit of money to spend on this kind of thing, the fact you get real leather and it is very, very well made, it might be worth checking out. One of the downsides of making the M2 MacBook Air your main laptop is that you don't get access to many ports, so you get MagSafe, fantastic, but then you only get 2 USB-C/Thunderbolt ports. So you're going to need a hub, and there are loads of options out there for this, but my choice is UGREEN, because UGREEN make some very nice kit. The hub itself feels nice and tight and like you can throw it around without worrying. The cable, which is long enough to be useful but not too long to be annoying, is braided. That feels like top quality stuff as well. And being a 7-in-1 hub, we get loads of connections. So you get 2 USB-C ports. One of them is pass-through power, so you can connect a powered USB cable to this if you need to. There's also HDMI, 2 USB-A ports, and then on the side we've got SD and micro SD ports. So if you need a USB hub for your MacBook Air, I recommend the UGREEN 7-in-1. It's not particularly expensive, it has pretty much all the connections you'd ever need, and it's really well made. I hope you found something of interest in this list of accessories. As you can tell, they're not specific to this laptop, but for me, they've created this kind of M2 MacBook Air ecosystem, and I love it. Now, if you've still got some time and you want to get my sort of final opinion on this laptop and why I think it's the king of the laptop jungle, keep watching for a link to that video.